discussing the same thing, thinking the same thing at the same time. We are driving from Spokane, Washington, all the way to...
See, I say Spokane, but that guy, the people we met in Spokane,
Yeah,
I don't know.
we were at a fruit farm last night, and this woman was talking to me about Buckley, and she said, what brought you to Spokane? So, anyway, south of Tacoma, south of Seattle is where we're headed, onto the coast. And what we both imagined Washington State looking like is nothing like what it looks like where we are.
Not what we are seeing.
Flat farmland.
Well, relatively flat. I mean, it's rolling hills, but there's not a tree out here hardly.
Nope.
We've had our share of problems on this trip. Hasn't been all piece of cake, but we're on a good run, and some of the problems we've had. The first one was when we were in Washington, out on the coast. We were on the beach, actually, and got a call from the KOA we were staying at. The guy was great. It was Ken. He called us up. He said, hey, you've got water coming out from underneath your RV. I shut off the water supply to the RV because I didn't know where it was coming from. So we hightailed it back to the KOA, and sure enough, there was water pouring out from the bottom of the RV. Turns out the water pump in our brand new Jayco, a year old or just under a year old, the water pump went out, or there's a valve inside the water pump that went out, and when it's supplied with city water, as we were on a city water connection at the KOA, when it's supplied with city water, that valve keeps it from filling the water tank. It just keeps the pressure, the system pressurized. That little valve inside the SureFlow Revolution 4008 water pump went completely out. So I had to call Camping World, which we had passed on the way, and have them ship us a new, brand new one of these. Get it out of the box and show you. Ship us a brand new one of these water pump, which I then had to install. But in addition to that, there was already water damage underneath, and I had to go up underneath, and the water tank had sprung a leak in an L elbow joint that they had put on the hose to solve another problem that we had when we first got the RV. Or the travel trailer, and when they solved that problem, they ran about 6 feet of coiled hose, which kept the water from draining all out. When we filled the water tank too full on the trip, it drained all the water out because there was nothing stopping it from flowing right out. So this stops the water from flowing right out. The little elbow joint was great, but it had not been properly tightened onto the hose, and so it leaked all over the place and tore up a bunch of insulation in there, soaked it down. So I'm going to have to replace that eventually, or have them do it because it is still under warranty when we get back home. But for the time being, I had to take out and drop some of the bottom underlayment off of the trailer, get up in there, pull the insulation out, all of the wet insulation that I could reach out of there, and then seal it back up, fix the leak, and then sealed it back up, got that all fixed, replaced the water pump, got that all fixed. Everything's working great now. We've been back on the road for 3-4 days, about 4 days since then. The only other problem since then has been the dog. Buckley has developed a sore. It is an interdigital cyst between the paw on his left paw, on his left front paw. I don't know what he got into, but it had to have been at least a week ago, about a week and a half ago. We noticed he had just a little nodule there between his toes. We checked him Susan was checking him for ticks and found it, and after that we were sure, well, it wasn't a tick, it was obviously connected to him. It is a cyst. It's an interdigital cyst. He has licked it to the point where it was bleeding and was open. Layers of it peeled away. We think we've got that under control. We've talked to the vet. We've got him an appointment when we get back home the day after we return, but in the meantime, we've been soaking that in some Epsom salt water. We've got that healed up with some first aid cream and a bunch of stuff. So I think we've got that under control, although he's walking around. I'll put some video on here. He's walking around with one white sock. Susan bought him some infant socks at Walmart, which have been great, and he's got a sock over top of his foot. So I've been calling him One Sock, and we've started calling him One Sock. I think that's his Native American name now, since we are traveling in Blackfeet country out here. So it's been an interesting trip. We've had our share of problems. We've had our share of things go wrong. But nothing we couldn't fix. Right now, I mean, everything's back in place and we're running well. Knock on wood. I don't want to jinx us, but everything's running well.